When an empath goes quiet, it's already over because the silence did not begin in their mouth. It began in their soul long before anyone noticed. An empath does not go quiet the first time they are hurt. They go quiet after they have explained too many times, forgiven too many times, felt the same wound return in different clothing too many times, and finally realized that their words are no longer reaching the place they were meant to reach. Their silence is not confusion. It is not weakness. It is not a game. It is not punishment. It is the moment their heart stops auditioning for care from someone who kept treating their pain like an inconvenience. And that is why people realize too late what that quiet really meant. Because when an empath is still explaining, there is still hope. When they are still emotional, there is still a part of them trying. When they are still asking questions, there is still a part of them that believes the connection can be repaired. When they are still sending long messages, still looking for the right words, still saying, "Can you please understand what this is doing to me?" There is still love standing at the door. But when the empath goes quiet, something sacred has already stepped back. Not because they stopped caring, because caring without change finally became too painful to keep performing. There is a silence that means peace. There is a silence that means healing. But there is another silence, a silence people should pay attention to. The silence of an empath who has been dismissed one too many times. The silence of someone who used to explain every feeling, but now only watches. The silence of someone who used to chase clarity, but now no longer believes clarity will come from the person who kept creating confusion. That silence is not empty. It is full of everything they no longer have the strength to say. It is full of every message they typed and deleted, every night they lay awake, replaying words that someone else forgot, every moment they sensed fake kindness before proof appeared, every time they felt guilty for having boundaries, every time they made their wound softer so the person who caused it would not feel accused, every time they chose understanding and received more misunderstanding in return. And eventually the empath stops. They stop explaining, they stop defending, they stop correcting the story. They stop trying to make someone see what they should have cared enough to notice. This is the part people misunderstand. They think the empath's silence means the empath is being cold. But the empath went quiet because their warmth was being wasted in a room that kept turning cold. They think the empath is trying to hurt them, but the empath went quiet because they were tired of being hurt and then being asked to explain the hurt gently. They think the empath is distant now. But the empath was emotionally alone inside that connection long before they physically pulled away. An empath does not disappear in one day. They disappear in layers. First, they stop expecting you to understand. Then they stop explaining what you already know. Then they stop asking why your behavior keeps repeating. Then they stop offering the benefit of the doubt. Then they stop telling you how much it hurts. Then they stop reacting to the things that used to break them. And by the time you notice the silence, they have already grieved you quietly. That is why it feels final. The old empath was always trying to repair, always trying to restore peace, always trying to read the room, understand the mood, soften the conflict, protect the connection, and make love feel safe again. The old empath could be pulled back by guilt, by a soft apology, by a sad look, by a memory, by the hope that maybe this time the pattern would finally change. But the quiet empath is different. They are not looking for the beginning anymore. They are looking at the pattern. And once an empath starts looking at the pattern instead of the promise, everything changes because promises can sound beautiful. Apologies can sound sincere. Tears can look real. Nostalgia can feel powerful. But a pattern speaks louder than every soft moment that tried to cover it. The empath may have stayed for the rare softness, the one honest conversation, the moment when you seem to finally understand, the apology that sounded like change, the little sign that made them think maybe I was right to keep believing. But then the wound returned, same feeling. New words, same distance, new excuse, same disrespect, new apology, same pattern, different costume. And the empath finally understood that a good moment is not the same as a safe relationship. That realization does not make them angry at first. It makes them quiet because there is a kind of heartbreak that does not shout. It sits in the chest like a truth that can no longer be denied. It whispers, I have been here before. I have explained this before. I have forgiven this before. I have tried to make this work before, and nothing truly changed. That whisper becomes the beginning of the end. When an empath goes quiet, it often means they have stopped trying to convince themselves too. For a long time, they may have defended the person who hurt them, not always to others, but inside their own mind. Maybe they did not mean it. Maybe they were stressed. Maybe they are afraid. Maybe they are wounded. Maybe they do not know how to communicate. Maybe if I love them better, they will soften. Maybe if I explain more clearly, they will finally understand. That is how empaths trap themselves. They explain people's wounds before protecting their own. They understand the other person's pain before honoring the pain that person caused. They search for reasons behind behavior until they almost forget the behavior itself. But the quiet empath has reached the point where understanding is no longer enough. They may still understand you. They just no longer use that understanding to abandon themselves. That is the shift. The empath who goes quiet is not saying, I do not feel anything. They are saying, I finally feel myself too. I finally feel my exhaustion. I finally feel how much this has cost me. I finally feel the part of me that kept shrinking so this connection could survive. I finally feel the child inside me who learned to be understanding because nobody made space for my pain. And now I am listening to that part. This is why their silence feels different. It is not the silent treatment. It is not manipulation. It is not a strategy to make someone chase. It is not emotional punishment. It is self-protection after emotional overextension. It is the nervous system closing a door that the heart kept trying to leave open. There is a scene many empaths know. It is late. The room is dark. The phone is in your hand. You have typed the message, the long message, the careful message, the message that explains everything again. You explain why it hurt. You explain why you pulled away. You explain what you need. You explain your intention. You explain your tone. You explain that you are not trying to fight. You explain that you still care. You explain your pain in the softest language possible, so the person who caused it will not feel attacked by it. Then you read it again, and something inside you goes still because you realize, I have already said all of this. Maybe not in the same words, maybe not in the same message, but you have said it in your tired eyes. You have said it in your trembling voice. You have said it in the way you became quieter. You have said it in the way your body pulled back. You have said it in the way your laughter changed. You have said it in the way you kept giving chances, hoping one of them would be respected. And if they wanted to understand, they would not need you to bleed in paragraphs again. So you delete the message. That deletion is not giving up. It is waking up. Because the empath finally sees that some people do not misunderstand because the words were unclear. They misunderstand because understanding would require accountability. They misunderstand because if they truly understood, they would have to change. They misunderstand because your confusion keeps them comfortable. They misunderstand because your explaining keeps you emotionally available. And the empath is done being available for that. This is where people begin to panic. They may not say it, but they feel the shift. The empath's messages become shorter. Their energy becomes harder to read. Their warmth becomes less automatic. Their eyes stop searching for reassurance. Their voice becomes calm in a way that feels final. The empath is still polite, still kind, still present maybe. But something is gone. The old access is gone. That is what people miss. They did not lose the empath's love in one moment. They lost access to the version of the empath who kept choosing connection over self-respect. They lost access to the version who would rather be hurt than misunderstood. They lost access to the version who explained every feeling until the boundary disappeared. They lost access to the version who confused being needed with being loved. They did not lose your love. They lost access to your wounds. And when someone loses access to an empath's wounds, they often call it coldness. But cold does not mean cruel. Cold means you no longer warm people who keep leaving you in the dark. Calm does not mean weak. Calm means your nervous system is no longer a public place. Uneachable does not mean broken. Uneachable means the old door does not open for people who only knew how to enter through your pain. This is the empath's quiet upgrade. It does not look dramatic from the outside. No shouting, no begging, no public announcement, no desperate final performance, just a slow inner decision. I will no longer keep handing my heart to someone who treats it like something to debate. I will no longer keep explaining basic respect. I will no longer keep calling repeated harm a misunderstanding. I will no longer keep abandoning myself to prove that I care. That decision changes the energy. People who were used to your over-explaining may feel rejected by your clarity. People who were used to your emotional availability may feel threatened by your peace. People who were used to using guilt may become frustrated when guilt no longer moves you. People who were used to your immediate response may feel confused when your silence no longer means anxiety, but choice. This is why toxic people panic when the empath goes quiet, because the empath's words gave them something to work with. Words could be twisted, tears could be dismissed, anger could be used as evidence, long messages could be dissected, emotional reactions could be reframed as proof that the empath was the problem. But silence with clarity gives them nothing to grab, no chaos, no performance, no emotional material, no opening. The empath simply stops feeding the pattern. And when the pattern is not fed, it begins to reveal itself. If someone truly cared, your quiet would make them reflect. They would ask, what did I miss? Where did I stop listening? What pain did they try to tell me before they became silent? What pattern did I keep repeating that made them feel unsafe? They would not rush to accuse. They would not instantly call you cold. They would not make your silence about their wounded pride. But people who only wanted access will react differently. They will be angry that you stopped explaining. They will be offended that you no longer chase. They will say you changed. They will say you are distant. They will say you are not the same. They will say you are cold now. And in a way, they are right. You are not the same. The version of you who kept making your pain convenient for others is gone. The version of you who kept trying to turn someone else's repeated pattern into a solvable misunderstanding is gone. The version of you who kept entering the same emotional courtroom to defend your right to feel is gone. The version of you who believed love meant endless access is gone. And that is not a tragedy. That is healing. But healing can feel like cruelty to people who benefited from your self-abandonment. Let them feel that. You do not have to become the old you just to make someone comfortable with the consequences of how they treated you. There is another reason an empath goes quiet. They have finally stopped trusting the apology. For a long time, an empath may live for repair. They want to believe the apology. They want to believe the person understands. They want to believe that the softness after pain means something has changed. They want to believe that if someone cries, explains, regrets, or promises, then the wound will not repeat. But eventually, the empath learns the difference between repair and reset. Repair changes the pattern. Rut sheet only changes the mood. Repair brings accountability. Rut sheet brings temporary tenderness. Repair respects the wound. Rut sheet rushes the wound. Repair says, I see what I did, and I will work to stop repeating it. Rut sheet says, can we go back to how things were before you started holding me accountable? The empath goes quiet when they realize they have been accepting resets and calling them repairs. That realization is painful, because it means the hope they were holding may have been built on temporary relief, not real change. It means the closeness after conflict may not have been healing. It may have been the emotional calm that comes when the storm takes a break. It means the good days were real, but they were not enough to erase the pattern that kept returning, and the empath can no longer pretend. They may still care, but care does not reopen every door. They may still miss the person, but missing does not mean returning. They may still understand why someone behaves the way they do, but understanding does not equal access. This is the maturity of the quiet empath. They stop confusing compassion with caring. Compassion says, I see your pain. Caring says, I will let your pain become my responsibility. Compassion says, I hope you heal. Caring says, I will stay wounded until you do. Compassion says, I understand why you struggle. Caring says, your struggle gives you permission to keep hurting me. The empath goes quiet when they stop caring. And for some people, that feels like abandonment. But it is not abandonment to return responsibility to the person who refused to hold it. It is not abandonment to stop saving a connection alone. It is not abandonment to leave a pattern that keeps asking you to disappear. Sometimes distance is not punishment. It is self-rescue. The empath may have learned this the hard way. Maybe they were emotionally alone as a child. Maybe they learned early to read faces, soften moods, manage tension, and become easy to love. Maybe they learned that having feelings made things harder. Maybe they learned that being useful brought affection, while being honest created discomfort. Maybe they became the calm one because nobody knew what to do with their pain. So as adults, they kept repeating the old role. They became the one who understands, the one who forgives, the one who explains, the one who senses every shift, the one who tries to fix the room, the one who gives comfort even while needing comfort, the one who says it's okay when it is not okay at all. And then one day, the empath realizes the same childhood wound is still running their adult relationships. They are still trying to earn safety by being easy, still trying to earn love by being useful, still trying to earn closeness by ignoring their own discomfort, still trying to earn understanding from people who do not know how to hold their truth. That realization makes them quiet, not because they have nothing to say, because they are finally listening to themselves. And what they hear is this: I am tired, not tired like sleep, tired like a soul that has been carrying too much for too long, tired of being the emotional translator, tired of making excuses, tired of sensing the truth and then doubting it, tired of forgiving without change, tired of explaining pain to people who keep repeating it, tired of being called sensitive by people who were careless with softness. This tiredness becomes sacred because it is the body refusing to continue a pattern the heart kept romanticizing. When an empath goes quiet, their body is often leading the way. The heart may still want to reach, the mind may still want to explain, the memory may still replay the good moments, the old wound may still whisper, do not leave, do not disappoint them, do not be misunderstood, do not become cold. But the body says, no more. The body remembers the tight chest, the anxious waiting, the sinking stomach, the exhaustion after every conversation, the way your energy dropped around them. the way your truth became smaller, the way peace felt impossible when they had access to you. Your body is evidence. Your exhaustion is evidence. Your repeated confusion is evidence. The way you shrink around someone is evidence. You do not need to be destroyed before you are allowed to choose peace. This is where the quiet empath becomes powerful. They stop asking, how can I make them understand? They start asking, why am I staying where my pain must be explained this many times? They stop asking, do they still care? They start asking, does their care create safety? They stop asking, what if they finally change? They start asking, what pattern am I living in right now? They stop asking, am I being too sensitive? They start asking, why do I keep ignoring what my sensitivity is trying to show me? These questions change everything, because the empath's silence is not the absence of emotion. It is the presence of discernment. The old empath reacted from pain. The healed empath observes from wisdom. The old empath chased answers. The healed empath watches patterns. The old empath feared being misunderstood. The healed empath accepts that some people misunderstand on purpose because understanding would require change. That acceptance is painful, but it frees you. You are allowed to be misunderstood by people who benefited from your over-explaining. You are allowed to be disliked by people who preferred you without boundaries. You are allowed to be called cold by people who only recognized your warmth when it served them. You are allowed to stop defending your healing to people who benefited from your wounds. Practical step. When someone tries to pull you back into guilt, drama, over-explaining, or emotional performance, use one calm sentence. I understand how you feel, but I am no longer available for this pattern. Then stop. Do not add 10 paragraphs. Do not soften the boundary until it disappears. Do not turn your truth into a request for permission. Do not defend your entire soul to someone who has already shown you they know how to twist your words. Say it once, then let your behavior protect the sentence. Because consistency is what makes the quiet empath unreachable to manipulation, not anger, not revenge, not emotional walls, consistencies. When you no longer answer chaos with availability, the pattern weakens. When you no longer reward guilt with surrender, the pattern weakens. When you no longer confuse apology with change, the pattern weakens. When you no longer let nostalgia erase memory, the pattern weakens. When you no longer abandon yourself to keep the connection alive, the pattern collapses inside your life. And that is the only collapse you should seek, the collapse of what was controlling you. This does not mean the empath becomes cruel. It does not mean they stop loving. It does not mean they stop caring about others. It means their love becomes cleaner because it no longer requires self-betrayal. Their compassion becomes wiser because it no longer becomes a doorway to exhaustion. Their kindness becomes more honest because it no longer pretends that everything is okay when their spirit is tired. A quiet empath can still love deeply. They just no longer love without listening to themselves. They can still forgive. They just no longer use forgiveness to reopen every door. They can still understand. They just no longer let understanding become an excuse for repeated harm. They can still care. They just no longer carry what belongs to others. This is the healed version of silence, not silent treatment, silent truth, silent self-respect, silent return. There is a peace after this that feels strange at first. The absence of explaining may feel uncomfortable. The quiet may feel like guilt. The distance may feel like loneliness. Your nervous system may search for the old chaos because chaos became familiar. You may feel tempted to send one more message, to clarify one more thing, prove one more time that your heart was good. Do not shame yourself for the urge. Just do not obey every urge. Sometimes the urge to explain is not love. Sometimes it is fear. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of being seen as cruel. Fear of being abandoned. Fear of becoming the person who leaves. Fear of finally choosing yourself and losing the identity of being endlessly understanding. Let the fear rise, then choose truth. Truth says, I have explained enough. Truth says, my pain is real even if they deny it. Truth says, love should not require this much self-erasure. Truth says, silence is allowed when words have been repeatedly ignored. Truth says, I can choose peace without making a speech. This is why the empath's quiet is often already the ending. Because the inner decision has been made long before the outer action appears. They may still be physically near. They may still answer politely. They may still smile. They may still move through the room with grace, but inside, they are no longer reaching. And when an empath stops reaching, the relationship is living on borrowed time, not because the empath wants to punish anyone, because the bridge has been crossed too many times from only one side. A connection cannot survive forever on one person's emotional labor, cannot survive forever on one person's patience, one person's forgiveness, one person's explaining, one person's hope, one person's ability to see potential while swallowing pain. Eventually, the empath stops walking across the bridge alone. And when they stop, many people finally notice there was a bridge at all. They notice the silence. They notice the distance. They notice the missing warmth. They notice the unanswered message. They notice the shorter replies. They notice the absence of the person who used to make everything easier. But noticing after the empath goes quiet is not the same as valuing them while they were speaking. That is the tragedy. Many people only value the empath when the empath is no longer available. They miss the listener. They miss the forgiver. They miss the emotional shelter. They miss the person who made them feel understood without requiring them to become accountable. They miss the old access. But mature love does not wait until silence to care. Mature love listens while the voice is still gentle. Mature love repairs before distance becomes necessary. Mature love protects the soft person before softness turns into guarded peace. Mature love does not call the empath dramatic for speaking, then call them cold for going quiet. If you are the empath listening to this, hear it clearly. You are not wrong for going quiet after too much pain. You are not cruel for no longer explaining. You are not broken because your heart needs protection. You are not cold because you stopped offering warmth to people who repeatedly left you in the dark. You are not selfish because you finally chose peace over performance. You're not becoming darker. You're becoming harder to manipulate. But also remember this. Do not use silence as a weapon against safe people. Do not punish people who are trying with the silence you developed around people who refuse to listen. Do not let old wounds make you disappear from every connection. Silence can protect you, but it can also become a wall if fear is the only thing building it. So ask yourself gently, am I quiet because I am protecting peace or because I am afraid to be honest? Am I quiet because the pattern has shown me the truth or because I am expecting the past from someone who is different? Am I quiet because words have been ignored or because I have not yet given this person a chance to meet me? That question matters because healing is not becoming unreachable to everyone. Healing is becoming unreachable to manipulation. Safe people deserve communication. Unsafe patterns deserve distance. The healed empath learns the difference. And when the difference is clear, their silence becomes clean. No revenge, no games, no hidden punishment. Just truth. If a connection is safe, speak honestly. If a pattern is harmful and repeated, step back wisely. If someone has shown accountability, allow repair. If someone only wants reset, protect your peace. This is emotional maturity. The empath's quiet should not be a mask for fear. It should be a boundary guided by truth. And when the quiet is guided by truth, it becomes powerful. Because it is no longer the silence of someone who feels powerless. It is the silence of someone who has finally stopped giving power away. There is a version of you that will thank you for this. The version that used to over-explain. The version that cried alone after being dismissed. The version that felt guilty for having needs. The version that stayed because leaving felt cruel. The version that thought love meant endless patience. The version that gave access to people who only knew how to use it. That version does not need shame. That version needs rest. They survived, they tried, they loved, they hoped, they gave. But they are not meant to lead your life forever. The healed version of you can love with boundaries. Speak with clarity, leave with peace, forgive without returning, care without carrying, feel deeply without drowning, stay soft without staying available for harm. That is the empath's final form, not cruelty, not revenge, not bitterness, emotional freedom. Freedom to stop explaining when explanation has become self-abandonment, the freedom to stop chasing when chasing has become disrespect toward yourself, the freedom to stop absorbing pain that does not belong to you. The freedom to stop begging to be understood by people who keep choosing not to understand. The freedom to become calm, private, selective, and impossible to manipulate. When an empath goes quiet, it is already over because their silence usually means the internal door has closed. The light may still be on, but the lock has changed. And when the next chapter begins, remember this. The people who truly value an empath do not wait until the empath becomes silent to start listening. They listen while the empath is still speaking softly. They repair while the empath still believes repair is possible. They protect the connection before the empath has to protect themselves from it. When an empath goes quiet, it's already over because silence is what happens when the heart finally accepts what the mouth got tired of explaining.